failure to me was that an action did not come to fruition. Failure had to do with something that didn't happen. It didn't define me when that thing didn't happen. A lot of people either grow up with the idea or are taught the idea somehow, maybe in their environment, what have you, that when they try something and it doesn't work, it's not that that thing failed, but now they are a failure, which to me is crazy.
I'm Katie.
I'm Anna.
She's a psychotherapist,
And she runs a photography empire.
Together we make music and we podcast
To encourage ourselves
and you
to do the things that scare us most.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Doing Scary Things podcast. Today we get to share with you a conversation we had with Bill Cakmis. For over 30 years, Bill has coached singers, actors, anchors, talk show hosts, politicians, doctors, lawyers, CEOs, and athletes. He's partnered with major film studios and production companies. Needless to say, Bill has truly done it all, from acting to coaching to writing and directing and motivational speaking. But we had the privilege of talking with him about so much more than his resume in this interview, from his own experiences and all the things he's learned as he's tackled his own scary things, to helping others tackle their scary things, and perhaps my favorite, how he deals with that inner naysayer we all have. So without further ado, we hope you enjoy this interview.
All right. My name is Bill Cakmis. I am a performance coach, a media consultant, a show doctor. I work with actors and anchors and talk show hosts and politicians and religious leaders and doctors and lawyers and athletes. If it's on stage, at a podium, in front of a camera, I either fix it or enhance it or develop it, sometimes create it. So that's my life.
That's fascinating.
That is fascinating. That's a very wide spectrum.
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult to, when someone asks, what do you do? There's no word for what I do.
Yeah.
You can say, dentist or therapist, or there's no one word because my resume, and I've been doing this for 30 years, my resume is 8 pages long. I direct theater and I work on television shows and I, produce and direct and write. And there's so many things because if I had to do one thing my entire life, I'd shoot myself.
Same.
It's varied and I have fun.
I love that. Well, since it is so varied, how did you get started? How did this become your career?
I was on stage since I was 6, and my mother always put me in stage shows, and I'd worked professionally until I was in my late teens, early 20s. I moved to Los Angeles, and I started doing television and film as an actor. Although acting, I always enjoyed acting, and I was good at it. It wasn't something that really sparked me. The thing that I had the most fun doing, God gave everybody something. I just happen to get that thing where I walk into a room full of crap and I go, okay, there's a pony here somewhere.
Yes. Love it.
All we have to do is find the pony and all this crap will disappear. Ever since I could remember, when people would ask me to solve their problem or take a look at something or what have you, I could do it. And usually I could help or I could fix it. And it's just something I love to do. And so because of that, I did a lot of directing and teaching and coaching from the time I was in, high school on. People would come to me and ask me things. And when I went to Los Angeles, I started teaching at the Beverly Hills Playhouse. Simply because I just had fun doing it. It was to coach and teach and direct. But that was a side thing. What I was doing there was acting. And I did a lot of television, a lot of film, and because it was money. It was good money, and I was good at it. But every time I did something, every time I did a television show, every time I did a film, I would call my mom and say, Mom, I'm on whatever, Falcon's Crest or whatever. She would go, you know what? You should be on a soap opera.
Oh my gosh.
From the time I was 6 years old, she would say, you should be on a soap opera. Now, I love my mother. She's awesome and sweetest woman in the world, and she's fantastic. But that was always the response, no matter what I did. And I worked, I was a working actor. So finally, after years, I get on a soap. I'm on that soap for, 6 months. I'm taking a break. I fly home to see my parents. And when I get home, my mother's thrilled to see me, but she says nothing about the soap. I figure, well, she's just happy to see me. I'm not going to worry about it. And then later on, so that was like in the morning. Around lunchtime, she didn't say anything. Dinner time, she didn't say anything. Now I'm getting pissed off. At dinner, I said, Mom, I'm on a soap. And she said,
I did it.
She said, sweetheart, that's so nice. I said, that's nice? I said, from the time I'm 6 years old, you've been telling me I should be on a soap opera. I am on a soap opera. I said, what do you think? And she said, sweetheart, I haven't been able to watch. I said, why haven't you been able to watch my soap? She says, well, because you come on during my stories. It wasn't enough that I was on any soap opera. I had to be on her soap opera.
Well, she didn't specify that.
Well, thank you, right? So it hit me like a ton of bricks. The second she said that, it hit me that, you know what, all of these years since I'm 6 years old, I have been acting for her.
Wow.
I've been doing everything I've done, all the career I've made as an actor. I did it because my mother wanted me to do it. And I didn't begrudge it. I didn't get upset about it. It was this revelation, like, what the hell am I doing? So as soon as my contract was up, I said, you know what, for a while, I'm just going to stop. I'm going to stop chasing after that. And I'm really going to see where this coaching takes me, teaching and coaching. So I just started to let people know this is what I'm doing now. And it was like opening up a floodgate.
Wow.
Because all of the people that I had worked with all of those years, just as a friend, those people had suddenly, they had garnered awards doing shows and what have you, and they were happy to refer me.
Yeah.
And so suddenly I had an instant career just by saying, all right, I'm ready to go. And, from working with actors, I started to work with athletes who had won gold medals or what have you and wanted to do commercials or be actors or be commentators. And from commentators, I started to work with sports guys. And from sports guys, I got into news. And, 30 years later, I've worked with,
yeah,
and it's all by word of mouth. Just one person says something to another person. And that's how it's gotten.
That was such a huge transition to go from realizing, even first and foremost, realizing that I've been doing everything kind of for someone else. What is it that I want to do? Like, how was that for you? Was that scary at all to go, I'm going to kind of pivot over here and now I'm doing this because it's what belongs to me? Like, what was that like for you?
Interestingly enough, because I had been driving, it's like I had already been driving racing cars. I just never gotten into NASCAR.
Right.
I'd gotten onto a track, but I'd been driving cars for so long that, all it was, all right, well, let's go see if I can actually do a race. Let's see if I can actually get on the field. And I will tell you something that I was just, I do these interviews occasionally. And recently somebody said to me, an interviewer said to me, so tell me about your failures. And I went, well, first of all, why would you ask that question? This woman said, my listeners would really like to know about, when people fail, how they come back from it. And I said, I said, you're going to hate the answer to this. I said, I've never failed. And she said, what do you mean you've never failed? Yeah, and she was being indignant. Failed? We've all failed. Of course you failed. I said it's a mindset. And I don't know where this comes from. Again, I think it's a God thing. I kind of grew up with this. But the idea that failure to me was that an action did not come to fruition. Failure had to do with something that didn't happen. It didn't define me when that thing didn't happen. A lot of people either grow up with the idea or are taught the idea somehow, maybe in their environment, what have you, that when they try something and it doesn't work, it's not that thing failed, but now they are a failure, which to me is crazy.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It sounds like a big jump, but actually that's what people are, many people are kind of trained to feel that way and to believe.
Right.
Totally.
So suddenly they don't try things because in their brain, in their psyche, in their subconscious, whatever, they don't try it because what if I fail? And because the next step is, well, if I fail, that means I'm a failure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I love I always like the Thomas Edison line where, Thomas Edison created 1,000 things, but one of the things he created was the light bulb. And it took them, it was something like, and forgive me, I don't know the exact number, but let's say it was something like 900 or 1,000 times they tried to create this light bulb and it didn't work. And so finally, when it worked, as journalists will do, because I work with a lot of news people, as journalists will do, the first question the journalist asked was not, how did it feel to create a light bulb? The first question this journalist asked was, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times?
Yeah.
And again, that's because that's our culture. Our culture is you were our failure. Instead of you created this thing that never happened on the planet before. And Edison, and I love his answer was, look, the light bulb is an invention that took 1,000 steps. Mm. So, in other words, I figured out 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb, basically.
Yeah.
But, and, he I think it was his, now this, I think it was his, I think I'm quoting him, or it's a semi-quote, but he said that success is built on failure, frustration, and catastrophe.
Wow. I love that he threw catastrophe in there.
Success to him is something that when people are very successful, they built that success on failure, frustration, and catastrophe. And it's such a great quote. I work with a lot of athletes, and I'm working with a linebacker right now, and he's been in the NFL for years, and he's fantastic. He's incredible at what he does. And so I'm coaching him because he's doing public speaking, and I'm writing his speeches and working with him on how to do these things because he's not a speaker. He's a football player. And last year I had the opportunity to go and watch a practice. And these practices are crazy. They're insane. It's like afterwards, I couldn't believe some of the stuff they do, right? So afterwards, in a session, we sit down, and this guy is this huge Adonis of a guy. Sweet man, kill you in a second, right? It's that guy.
Sure.
Right. So anyway, he sits down. And so, most people would be afraid to ask questions that might get them hurt. But, I don't care. So he says, I said, listen, before we start, I got to ask you something. He said, yeah. I said, you got to hate practice. Now, tell me the truth. You got to hate practice, right? He says, no, man, I love practice. I said, you're full of shit. And he said, no, man, I love practice. I said, why? He said, because it's the only chance I get to fall on my butt. It's the only time you learn anything. He said, when I'm playing a game, I can't make a mistake because I got mouths to feed. I can't, so I got to stay in my lane when I'm playing a game. Now his lane is huge because he's been playing for 20 years. But the idea though is that, he said, I've got to stay in my lane. So when I'm practicing, the problem is that I got young guys behind me nipping at my heels. And if I don't continue to grow and change and create, and then somebody's going to overtake me.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing the gig, I got to stay in my lane. But I still have to learn. But the only way I can learn is if I try crap out. And if I fall on my butt, I just learned something. So he said, I need that opportunity to learn. And he said, the only time you learn is when you fall on your butt. And it's such a great lesson for people to know and understand that you need to not only understand what, quote, end of quote, failure is, but you need to understand that failing at things is a necessary point in the process of actually learning how to do things. You have to be willing not only to fall on your butt, but it's okay. In fact, you want it to happen so you can learn something from it.
Right.
I think that, for a long time, we were criticizing parents, and still to some degree, for giving all of their children participation awards.
Right.
Nobody loses, right? In a game. You play a game, then everybody wins. Well, what are you teaching them? In life, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't do well in your job, they don't give you a participation award. You lose your job, right?
Well, that's predicated on the idea that losing is inherently bad or useless. And like, obviously, your goal is to win. Obviously, you would rather win than lose. But, there's even a parallel to this in empirical research where, we're taught as researchers, for example, to just be very neutral in the way that we approach creating a study and let the results speak for themselves. And if there's no significance, like there's no statistical significance in our results, that's just as valuable as if there is statistical significance. Right. It's not like we want to win, we want to get the significance. It's like we want to ask this question and then let the cards fall where they fall. Either answer is valuable. Winning and losing, they're both valuable. They're valuable experiences, and we need to be transparent about those and not be biased towards one or the other.
Kids and people need to know how to accept loss and need to learn how to overcome it and move on.
Yeah.
Because, winning, it's not about the fall, because we all fall. Everybody falls. So it's not about that. It's about getting up. It's about, how do you overcome that hurdle? How do you learn? What do you do? Do you jump over it? Do you go around it? Do you find a new avenue? Do you find another game? But if we accept failure as something that defines us, then we become afraid to live our lives, to try things out. And that's why I say, which really frustrated this woman. And even after I explained this, she still was so adamant on, yes, but you failed. And I said, look, I've tried things that didn't work. Absolutely. But that didn't mean I was a failure. It just meant that either one, I didn't know what I was doing and I need to learn a different way to do it. Or two, I realized that this isn't for me. We're all not great at everything. Yeah. So that's okay. It's okay to find what we're good at and what we're not good at and go, okay, you know what? I suck at that. So I'm not doing that anymore. But that doesn't mean I'm a failure. Last year at some point, my daughter is an actor and she lives in Texas. And I said, you should really move to Atlanta or New York or LA, someplace where it's going, there's a lot of it going on. Mm-hmm. Because, the more that's happening around you, the more you immerse yourself in the thing that you're interested in, the more chances you have at latching on to things and finding people who have similar interests and succeeding. And it hit me like it blew me away that she said to me, we were talking on the phone, and she said, "But Dad," she said this to me, "what if I fail?" Mm. I thought, oh my God, you've lived with me. How can you ask me that question? It kind of blows you away. But the thing is, and she's awesome, and she's very talented, very bright, and we had this conversation too, and then I realized that with coaching, with teaching, it's people will ask me, how do you, when you coach somebody, how long does it take? And I say, well, it takes as long as it takes. Some people quickly, some people it takes them a long time. So it takes what it takes for that person. But I said, I will tell you that every 6 or 9 months, there are people I've worked with for 17, 18 years. Yeah. That they'll call me on the phone because everyone around them, they're at the top of their craft, they're top of their career. They can't go anywhere else in their career. Now they're just maintaining and doing other things as well. And everyone around them tells them how great they are. And so they'll call me every 6 months, 9 months, just to say, look, because they know I'll walk in and I go, you're full of crap, right? Right. Okay. What do we do? What do we work? But the idea is, it's kind of like church. You don't go once. It's the same message every time, but you know what? Every once in a while, you got to go back and hear it again.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we tend to, as human beings, we tend to forget because we don't even mean to, but we like to take shortcuts, find easier ways to do things. And suddenly we're so off the track, of what we knew we were supposed to be doing in the first place. It's nice every once in a while for someone to say, excuse me, over here.
Yeah.
Where we were going. Don't forget. Right. And we go, oh, yeah. Yes, thank you for reminding me. And so we need that. We need someone in our life who occasionally gets us back in the groove. Because it's just too easy for people to run off the track. And it's not that they're bad people. It's just that as human beings, we love to figure out easier ways to do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Not always better.
Easier.
Right? Easier.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like you've worked with a lot of fascinating people. What has kind of been your favorite work you've been able to do?
Favorite work. Well, the two kinds of things that I do as a coach, one thing I do is teach people how to do their job. That's not as much fun, because it's more about if it's an anchor, teaching them how to read a prompter or how to sit at the desk.
Logistics.
Body language. And I love it. And it's you're having to look at something and ferret out the best way to make that thing happen, for that person, and teaching them just the basics. And so that's one part of coaching, is teaching basics. And again, it's great and I love it. But the more fun I have are when the other half of what I do is when there's a problem and I'm called in to solve it. That's the stuff I love, because there is a big factor. There's a probability that things could go kablooey.
Risk. There's a risk.
Huge risk factor. Multi-million-dollar projects that they have done everything they could. I'm usually the last. They have to prove that they tried everything. And they'll always call me in through the back door, so no one will know, right? And I've got to come in and fix the situation. And this is what I love, because it's like no one else could see. And sometimes it's so simple, but sometimes it's like complicated. But to be able to sit back and look at the whole picture and go, okay, here's what we need to do. And sometimes they'll look at you and they'll go, no. And I'll go, I'm telling you, this is what we need to do. And they'll go, no. I said, well, all right, well, then don't do it. I said, but if you want to fix it, and then they'll try it, it'll fit, and they'll think I'm this magician. And it's just because I was outside of the forest looking in.
Yeah.
There were so many trees around them, they just couldn't see, the big picture. So, there are problems like Dick Clark was producing a show here in Nashville years ago called Primetime Country. And Dick called me. I wasn't living here at the time. Dick called me and said, Bill, I have a host problem. And I hear that about every 9 months. Somebody calls me and says, we've got a host problem. And I said, Dick, what's your host problem? He said, women don't like our host. They did research. They were trying to find out why they weren't doing well in the ratings. And what the research came back is women don't like our host. And he said, can you fix it? And I said, well, I don't know, Dick. I've got to see the show. I've got to see. So he flies me to Nashville, and I come in. They were doing it at TNN. Well, there was this network called TNN at the time. So TNN was right next to the Opryland Hotel. There was an Opryland at the time, the Grand Ole Opry. It was all right there, and TNN was there as well. So I go and I watch the show, and after the show, I sit down with Dick, and I said, well, I get it. I get why women don't like him. First of all, he treats the women that come on his show like they're cattle. So, in other words, Dolly Parton would come on the show, and he wouldn't get up from his desk. He'd go, hey, honey, come on over.
Oh, gosh.
These performers were so gracious, especially there are a lot of country music stars, very gracious people. You see, this guy doesn't even know he's doing this. Everyone else goes, well, that's just who he is. But they're not sort of putting two and two together. So I said, Dick, part of the problem is he's as a host, just like if you're a host as a party, there's certain things that you do to make your guests feel welcome and comfortable, and he ain't doing those things. So I said, so I need to teach him, because no one could talk to him. That was another thing. No one else was allowed to look at him. Otherwise, they would lose their job or whatever. So, and I don't care, which is why I get hired to do these things. So I said, but also I've got to work with your producers on how to write for him, because you're writing for him like he's David Letterman. And women don't like David Letterman jokes. And Letterman's very funny, but his kind of humor was more of an edgy guy kind of humor. Leno was more of a softer kind of an everybody family kind of humor, right? And this was country. So this is, Primetime Country was the name of the show. So, this was family oriented. And so I said, I need to teach your producers how to write for him. So he's not sounding like, a machismo guy. And also you're dressing him like a pimp. Change the outfit. So a lot of things needed to change on the show. But I said, but I do need to work with him. He said, great, I'll introduce you. So Dick takes me to this guy's office, and because it's maybe 10 o'clock in the morning, and this guy's at his desk, sitting at his desk, and Dick Clark brings me in, and Dick says, I want to introduce you to so-and-so and so-and-so. Meet Bill Cakmis. And the guy sitting behind his desk and he goes, uh-huh.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And
he goes, sit over here, honey. Come on right in.
Yeah, well, yeah, he didn't even ask me to sit. He just let me sit.
Just,
So Dick said, well, listen, I'm going to have you guys talk. And Dick turns around and walks out. And I'm looking at him. And this guy looks at me, and we haven't said two words to each other, right? And this guy looks at me and says, just to let you know, I'm not changing. Wow. I said, okay. I said, I guess we're done. He said, I guess we are. And I said, so before I leave, just so that I understand, when you say I'm not changing, and he interrupted me, he pointed to himself. He said, I like Joe Schmo. And he said, Joe Schmo isn't changing. Oh.
Third person.
Yeah.
Joe Schmo isn't changing. I said, okay. I said, all right. So I guess I'll see you later. He said, you probably won't.
Getting some narcissistic vibes from Joe Schmo right now. I'm not going to lie. Wow.
So I turned to leave, and I got to his door, to his office door, and I turned, and I did that Columbo thing. I said, just one more thing. Anyway, yeah. I said, which Joe Schmo are you talking about? And he said, the Joe Schmo sitting in front of you. I said, no, I get that. I said, but do you talk the same way to your wife you do to Dick? He said, no. I said, do you talk the same way to your mother that you do to your son? He said, no. I said, so which is the real Joe Schmo and which is the lie? And that flew all over him. I said, he went ballistic because nobody talked to him that way. And he just went off on me. And so I stood there because I've had this happen many times. I mean, he's just blown off. And I just stood there and I'm nodding and I'm trying not to change my facial expression because I wanted to laugh, but I'm just listening to him because I'm sure, at any other time in his life that this had either blown people out of a room or, they got on their knees and begged forgiveness or whatever. I just stood there and nodded, which was pissing him off even more. But sometime during this rant, one of the things he said was that you change who you are depending on who you're talking to succeed in that situation. He said those words in the middle of all this other crap that he was saying. And so he blah, 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 blah. He talks. And finally, his steam, his steam is let out and the wind's out of his sails. And he's just standing there, or he's standing there at this point and he's looking at me. And I said, are you done? He went, yeah. I said, great. I said, so you said one thing that it fascinates me. Now he's looking at me like he can't understand. It's like he was just talking to a cat. And this cat, had no person, because the cat just hears meh, 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 meh. And so at the end, the cat's just looking at you and going, I don't know what you said, but I'm still hungry. So I'm like, cats. And he's looking at me like, and I said, so I just have one question. You said something a minute ago. You said you change who you are depending on who you're talking to succeed in that situation. He said, that's right. I said, so you understand that I'm not here to make you somebody else. I'm here to find the best Joe Schmo for this television show. Because you said you're one Joe Schmo for your wife and you're another Joe Schmo for your child and another one for Dick. But all of those are real, right? And he said, right. I said, that's right. I said, so I'm just here to find the best Joe Schmo for this TV show. He said, oh. And I said, but you know what? You're right. We're done.
Oh,
I turn around and walk out. And as I'm walking out his door, he said, well, no, wait a minute. And then I worked with that show for 4 years.
That's hilarious.
On and off. I was there 1 week out of every 6 just to keep the show into gear. But that's the thing about these things is that it's finding, there's a problem and finding what the key is and turning that key, and suddenly everything opens up, and then the problem just sort of vanishes. That's why I said before, you walk into a room full of crap, and if you say, oh my God, we've got to clean up this crap, well, there's always going to be crap. So the idea is to come into that room full of crap and go, okay, there's a pony here. Let's find the pony. Because there's a good thing in here. It created crap. That crap will disappear if we teach that pony the right way to be a pony. And I get that, like I said, every 5 or 6 months, somebody calls me and says, we have a problem and we need to fix it. We don't know how to fix it.
With this kind of work, you're not front and center. What's that like not getting the credit essentially for what you do? Has that ever caused any internal issues?
When you say internal issues, you mean within
internally?
Me?
Yes.
I speak. I'm a speaker, so I'll get my audience fix occasionally. I can do, because I love to. I'm still an actor. I love to act, and I love to do this. But I do those things for fun, and I'm an A-type personality, so
you don't say.
Though I'm also an introvert, but I do love being on stage and doing that kind of thing. So I love that kind of adulation and audience and applause, and that's fun. It's any actor will tell you. However, to do what I do, if my name were front and center, I wouldn't be able to do half the things that I get called in to do. Actors, talk show hosts, politicians, whatever, they don't want people to know that they had someone helping them. They need everybody to think that they're self-sufficient and they're spoken to by God. The royal we, have you ever heard that expression? Uh-huh. What it comes from is that European monarchy, kings and queens, when they would speak to, and they still do today, but when they would speak to their subjects, they would say, we believe that you should do this. We would like the ships to do that. When they said we, what they were saying is God and I.
Right.
Because they were hand in hand with God, which gave them their power. They had divine authority because God, they were sitting right next to God. So whenever they said something, it was always we. So I think that these actors, or these, not just actors, but anyone that I work with, on a certain level, they don't want people to know that there was a we.
Yeah, what the we really stands for. There's
not even any God. It's just me, baby.
You're the man behind the curtain pulling the levers and stuff.
Yes.
So, it's an interesting question because, you know what? Everybody wants to be lauded for doing a good job. I will watch Oscars or Golden Globes or Emmys or whatever. And occasionally I'll say, you know what? They should be standing up there saying, God, family, and Bill Cakmis. That's
yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it gets, it would be nice to have the adulation, but the moment I get it would be the moment I lost my ability to do it.
Mm.
It's a tough thing, but
yeah.
What are you going to do?
I love that. Well, and I'm sure the people you're helping are, eternally grateful, whether they say that out loud or
quietly,
not. Yeah. With working with so many different types of careers, are there any strings that kind of tie people together? Are there any similarities across the fields that you have found?
What I found with very successful people who are at the top of the mark, I work in every high-profile profession. But one of the things I found out, every time I start working with somebody new, there's certain questions I'll always ask. And one of them is this where you saw yourself when you started out? Mm. What you're doing now, was this your goal? this is 30 years of me asking this question. No one has ever said yes.
Wow.
No one has.
That's profound.
It is.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Every single one of them were started out with a vision. They got on a path, and being on that path led them to these other things. They had to make a decision while they were on this path. Do I stay on the path, or, hey, wait a minute, this looks kind of cool. So I'm going to sort of veer off here and see what this is all about. You know, it's like deciding that you're going to get in a car and you're going to move to a different city, and you put all your stuff in the car, and you go, and halfway there you stop in another city just because you needed to stop and rest, and you find, damn, I like this place, and you never reach the destination. But here's the thing: you would have never found the city that you're now living in had you not gotten on that path.
Yeah.
So the thing that I found with all of these high-profile people who are very successful is that they were all goal-oriented. And thank God they didn't say to themselves, well, look, I'm not going to try this because what if I fail?
Yeah.
In essence, they all failed because none of them got what they wanted when they started out.
Yeah.
But because they got on that path thinking, well, you know what? Look, I'm going to put all of my effort into this, and I'm going to go for it, and let's see what happens. And, and that's why they're all successful, not because they got what they wanted, but because they knew how to persevere. And when opportunities came up, they grabbed them.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Like you were saying earlier, it might be the world's messed up definition of failure saying that they failed. You know what I mean? Because I think that would be my follow-up question to them. I'm curious if you ever asked this, but like, so you didn't get to where you wanted to go, but are you glad you're here? You know?
Well, everyone I work with, not everyone I work with, but these people that I'm talking about are at the top of the mark would be
right.
Not to say, well, yeah, let me see. Because you will ask, well, does money, what's the equation does money equal happiness?
Right.
And everyone will say, do I have problems? Yeah, everybody has problems. No matter how much money you have, you're always going to have problems because we're human beings, and the human condition doesn't change. But am I happier now than I was when I started? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's the idea that money doesn't create sorrow and it doesn't create happiness. All it does is allows the person who has that money to either become happier or become more sorrowful or more hateful or whatever. It just gives them a bigger opportunity to be who the hell they are.
Yeah.
And so, because look, I've worked with people who are, who have a ton of money and they're jerks, and I've worked with people who have a ton of money and they're the nicest, greatest human beings on the planet. So it wasn't money, They were probably that person before they had money. Money just allowed them, to.
Yeah. Well,
right?
there's research on that too. Like I think I read this in a Marty Seligman book, Flourish, maybe. I think he cited this study where it's basically like money does kind of correlate with an increase in happiness up to about $70,000 or $80,000 a year, and beyond that, it doesn't make a dent.
Right.
And that's basically like, do you have enough resources to kind of like live and have your basic needs met, and like maybe have a little extra on top of that, and then from after that point, it's all on you. Really, the money doesn't really make a huge difference. So.
I think that we have to learn how to be grateful for whatever situation we're in, knowing that there's always more, there's always better. There's always, it's never because we are. Here's the interesting thing too: is as beings, as human beings, but as beings, we are beings that need games to win. Mm-hmm. That's what we are. Without games to win, we begin to die. if we have nothing left, if we're just, boredom is what creates alcoholics, and boredom is what creates drug addicts, and boredom is what creates suicides, and boredom is what creates crime, and boredom creates a lot of things because, people, it's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
So I think, this idea that or to feel like there isn't any more, there's nothing else, there's nothing better I can be. This is it for me.
Yeah.
That's an insane way to think, because as soon as you think that, well, then the only place to go then is out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So we need games to win, I think. And, so when I'm, working with people, and I remember my son used to say, when he was young, he used to say, Dad, how do you do whatever? And I would say, well, do this, this, and this. And he would look at that, what I just showed him, and he'd go, what if that doesn't work? Right. And I would go, Chase, try this first.
Yeah.
Right. And then come back to me. Right. But people already get it in their heads where, okay, now I've done that. Well, then what?
Right.
Yeah.
Done. No.
Before they ever try it too.
Try it. So look, there's always more. There's always better. But you have to start off by saying, where I am now, no matter what position I'm in, I have to be appreciative. Look, if I gave 110% and it wasn't perfect, it's never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Be happy that you were able to give 110 and that you got what you got. Can you do it better tomorrow? Absolutely. But are you as good as you can be today? Yeah. So, but if you don't try, that's what you have to be sorry about, is that if you don't give it everything you got, and if you don't appreciate what you gave in the moment, right here, right now.
Personally, for you, it sounds like your wheelhouse is taking risks and a lot of creative effort, right? You're problem solving. You like there to be a chance that it can go kablooey. You could go on cruise control and just keep doing what you're doing, but you also have this mentality that like there's always more and you can always do better, and you're no stranger to kind of taking detours and stuff like that. So for you in your own life right now, what is your growing edge or your cutting edge, or what's next?
Yeah, that's a great question for me, because I was just thinking about that the other day. I just published a book, so I'm so embedded in what I'm doing that I'm not worried about what's next. I'm just doing what I'm doing. There used to be a guy that would come on to the Ed Sullivan Show, which was a variety show, and this guy would come on, and he had these poles sticking out of the ground, and he would put a plate on a pole, and he'd spin the plate.
Yeah.
Right? That plate was spinning. He'd put another plate. Now I'd have two plates. And then he'd put another plate. And so this guy would have 20 plates spinning, and he'd just be running around the stage spinning plates, right? And you go, damn, right? And so, I'm that guy that after I'm down to maybe like 2 plates, I've got to go, okay, I need another plate, because it's not enough for me to be spinning 2 plates.
Yeah.
So I've just finished this book, which is awesome. And so now we're trying to do publicity on that. And I'm working with, I've got clients I'm working with, but I was just a couple of days ago, I was going, okay, I need another plate. What's my plate? And I hate to say this, but I've done kind of everything. I mean, I've been on stage, I've been backstage, I've directed, I've done, so it's not like, I don't know. Then there's certain things I won't do. I won't get in a plane and jump out of it. I won't do, because I'm. I remember I was on the set of Point Break with Patrick Swayze. I'm sitting in the trailer with him one day, and I said, people call him Buddy. I said, Buddy, you're going to jump out of a plane in this, because he had to jump out of a plane in this film. He had a parachute. I said, you're going to jump out of a plane? He said, yeah. I said, they've got stunt guys to do that. I said, why would I have a stunt guy do it? I said, you couldn't pay me all the money in the world to fall out of a plane. And Patrick said, that's the difference between you and I. When you think about it, you think about falling. When I think about it, I think about flying.
Wow.
Right?
Did things like that just always come out of his mouth?
Yes, that's the kind of guy he was.
That's ridiculous.
Patrick could do anything. It pissed me off like crazy.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Love him to death. I know him for years. He was a friend, and but he could do anything. He could do anything, and he's like Tom Cruise is the same way.
Yeah.
But he was also just the sweetest, nicest guy. So it really pissed you off. But see, so the difference between Patrick and Tom and I is that there are things that I just won't do. One of them is jump out of a damn plane. But the idea is now what happens is when somebody does ask me to do something that I haven't done before, it's in my wheelhouse. It's like I just produced and I was a stage manager for the Country Music Songwriters Hall of Fame Gala, the biggest non-televised event in Nashville. It's there are 1,000 people. It's a dinner. It's a $250 a plate dinner, and it's 1,000 people that come and give props to songwriters, and they put 4 or 5 songwriters in the Hall of Fame every year.
Wow.
So they came to me because they couldn't. The person who co-produced and also stage managed the show couldn't be there. Something happened. They had to be in Europe or whatever, and they came to me. And this was maybe a month out, and said, "Bill, we've got a problem. We need somebody to do this." And my very first reaction in my brain was, "Shit, I've never done that before." And I looked at it and I went, "Let's do it." Because because it really hopped up my spidey senses were like, we all have that voice in our head that goes, "You will fail. You will fail." There's a.
I wish everybody could see you.
Yes. You really are the Wizard of Oz. I just want to throw that out there.
Thought of that earlier. He is behind the curtain.
I know.
You will fail. And so everybody has that voice, everybody. And
now they do. Thanks.
Yeah, they can replay that over and over.
Because we all have that voice. I've named mine because he talks a lot, mine. And I've named mine Beelzebub.
I love it.
So appropriate.
Beelzebub talks to me all the time. And every time I'm about to do anything, right before I did your show, Beelzebub goes, "You're going to fail. You're going to fail. It's not going to go well."
Oh my gosh.
I don't have anything to say.
Beelzebub's a liar.
Here's the fascinating thing about Beelzebub, because we all have a Beelzebub. Yeah. Beelzebub is hardwired into our system. People have come to me over the years asking me to help them get rid of Beelzebub, their Beelzebub, right. Get rid of their nerves. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is because I'll tell people, look, it's hardwired into your system. I can help you to negotiate with Beelzebub, to work around Beelzebub, to ignore Beelzebub, to hear Beelzebub and still do your job. But I can't get rid of Beelzebub because Beelzebub is hardwired. It's primal.
It's you. Yeah.
It's primal because when we lived in caves, we needed Beelzebub. Beelzebub saved us. Beelzebub was the voice that said, "Don't put your hand in that fire."
It's my favorite voice.
You'll fail. Don't chase after that bison. It will turn around and kill you. Right? So we at that time, we needed to listen to Beelzebub because without Beelzebub, we would have been dead. But over millennia, we've learned how to circumvent those things. We don't need Beelzebub like we used to. But Beelzebub is still with us, saying continually that you're no good, you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not talented enough, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And so, although Beelzebub anymore, I have tinnitus. I don't know if you know what that is. It's ringing in your ear. I've had it since I was a little kid. But you learn over time that you just ignore it. I mean, it's there. It's always there. It's you just ignore it. But every once in a while, when it gets really quiet at night, when there's nothing, when it's just the house there's nothing, it's really loud. When there's ambient sound, it kind of goes away because your brain learns to. So every once in a while, although Beelzebub is always with me, every once in a while, suddenly he becomes the biggest voice. And when that happens, when somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, we want you to stage manage this gala," And Beelzebub goes, ha, 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 ha. You've never done that before. You're going to fail. And as soon as that voice becomes bigger than any other voice, I go, I got to do it.
Yeah.
I got to do it. Because look, what's the worst that could happen? My trainer at the gym loves to say to me, whenever he'll tell me to do an exercise, and I'll look at him like he's insane. My Pilates instructor, this is even better. And I'll look at her like she's insane because the thing that she wants me to do, no human should do. I look at her and she'll say, just remember, there is no failure. She'll say to me, there's only, you'll only, how did she put it? There's only success or embarrassment. That's how she says it.
Oh,
there's only success or embarrassment, but there is no failure, right? So the idea that, look, I could do this, and you know what, it could go kablooey, but I have to believe all the years that I've trained, everything that I know about life and about people and about what I've done in the past, I'm going to figure a way around it. It's just not going to happen. I just have to believe that. And look, things sometimes they don't go according to plan. No, they never go according to plan.
Yeah.
Never. But you know what? Sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
But it's never a failure, or at least I'm not a failure.
It's so interesting that the thing that started out as the obstacle is now the thing that has appeal, like you're running in the direction of the risk. You're running in the direction of the thing you've never done before. Like as soon as you realize, ooh, that's a little scary, you're like, I'm in, count me in, unless it's jumping out of a plane. We all have our caveats.
There are those caveats where I go, that's going too far. I could probably do it and I'd probably be fine. But you know what? I don't want the answer to that question.
Right.
And I don't need it. And that's the thing too. We're not, God didn't make us good at everything, and that's okay.
Right. It might be unfamiliar or scary or challenging to you because you've never done it before, but also you're interested in doing it. It's like, obviously there's things you're not interested in doing just because they're not interesting to you. But if it's that magic combination, you're interested in it and it kind of freaks you out a little bit.
Most of us have experienced everything at one point or another. We've all experienced everything. So I had an acting teacher years ago. His name was Lee Strasberg. And there was an actor in class once that said, Lee said to this actor, I want you to do Othello. And the actor said, I've never killed anybody. How do I play a part of a murderer?
Oh, yes. Only murderers can play Othello, don't you know?
And what Lee Strasberg said, because it was method, and Lee said, have you ever killed a fly? Yeah, I've killed a fly. He said, well, then you can play Othello.
Mm.
So I always, somebody said to me a couple of years ago, here in Nashville, there's a place called Salud, which is at the top of a Whole Foods. It's a cooking school. And it's connected to Whole Foods. So you basically use Whole Food products, but you teach cooking classes at Salute, and you can sign up for classes. And I knew somebody who ran those classes. They did the program. They set up all of the classes, and they happened to be over at my house, and I was cooking. And I cook Greek food. I like to cook Greek food.
Ooh, yes.
And she said, this is awesome. And I said, thank you. And she said, you should teach a Greek class, a Greek cooking class. I said, right. And she said, no. She said, I do the salute thing. And she said, I can set this up for you. And again, Beelzebub. Teaching people something you've never taught before, and it's, you'll fail. You will fail. And I look at her and I'm thinking to myself, well, I know how to teach. I know how to cook. Screw it. And I just looked at her and I said, yeah, let's do it. And so I didn't know, I didn't know what I was doing or how, but I said, what the hell? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Teach these people how to cook, they don't like the food. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that because we've experienced just about everything anyway, when somebody asks us to do something we haven't done before many times, you can look back in your life and you can piece together, well, I've done this and I've done that and I've done that. You put them in combination. Yeah, I can do this. It's not exactly that, but
right. Relevant experience.
We usually end the podcast by asking if you have advice for people who are scared to start. I think you've answered it, but do you have anything else you want to add?
I think the first thing that people need to do is learn how to love themselves and be okay with trying stuff and be okay with it not working out perfectly. It's not ever going to. And enjoying the fact that you are living a life and you are in a reality that gives you the opportunity to try crap out.
Yes.
You have the choice that no one, you're not a slave. No one's holding a chain to you. No one's saying this is how you have to live your life. Because wouldn't that be horrible?
Yeah.
So it's to even be in a reality that you have the opportunity to choose whether you get to do something or not is crazy cool. And so be able to go, you know what? I'm going to try that. Not because I have to be perfect and to win, but just because I get to do it. Right?
Thank you. Yes.
If I don't win, I just had an experience that shit, man, there are a lot of people don't get to do.
I'm going to replay you saying that to me over and over instead of the fear thing.
I'm going to replay, you will fail. I love that. I love that that Beelzebub joined us on the podcast today because like truly saying it out loud does make it hilarious.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's so real, right? Like the things that we keep tucked away in our minds, they just sound loud and scary, and you give it an actual voice and you're like, okay, like,
yeah.
Listen, thank you guys very much.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
This was a delight.
Yeah. We'll be sure to link to all of your information in our show notes and where people can buy your book and all of that good stuff, because I know you have so much to share.
Thanks for joining us today on the Doing Scary Things podcast. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss one, leave a review, and share it with a friend. You can find our new album, Whisper, under the band name Jasper and Jade. Until next time.
How did this come about that you guys are doing this?
Oh, nobody's ever asked us that.
I know. We're being interviewed. So.
we were not prepared.